The death-dealing sword. In ancient times it was said, weapons are instruments of ill omen. The way of heaven finds them repugnant. The way of heaven is to use them only when necessary. If you would ask why this is so, it can be said that bows and arrows, swords and halberds are called weapons, and further that these are instruments of bad fortune and ill omen. The reason for this is that the way of heaven is a way that brings life, while instruments that kill are, on the contrary, truly ill-omened. Thus, they are considered repugnant because they are contrary to the way of heaven. Nevertheless, it goes on to say that using weapons and killing people when this cannot be avoided is also the way of heaven. If you would ask what this means, it is that flowers bloom and greenery accompanies them in the spring breezes, but the leaves fall and trees wither when autumn frost arrives. This is the judgment of the way of heaven. There is reason in striking down something that is replete. A man may ride his good fortune and commit evil, but you strike him down when the evil is replete. Thus, it may be said that using weapons is also the way of heaven. There are times when 10,000 people suffer because of the evil of one man. Therefore, in killing one man's evil, you give 10,000 people life. In such ways, truly, the sword that kills one man will be the blade that gives life to others. There is an art to using those weapons. If you do not know this art, you may well be killed by the person whom you are trying to kill. Think about this carefully. In what we are terming the martial arts, you stand off against another individual, both of you using a sword. In this martial art, there will be only one person who wins and one person who loses. This is a very small martial art. Although there is a victory and a defeat, the gain and loss will not be much. It is a large martial art when one person wins and the empire wins, or when one person loses and the empire loses. In this case, the one person is the general, and the empire is the various armed forces. The various armed forces are the hands and feet of the general. Making the various forces function well is making the general's hands and feet function well. When the various forces do not function well, the general's hands and feet do not function well. In a match with two opposing swords, victory comes to the man who naturally harmonizes principle and function, and whose hands and feet work well. In the same way, it can be said that the martial art of the great general is in winning a battle by using his various forces well, and by skillfully devising stratagems. It goes without saying that when two opposing armies face one another, and victory or defeat is to be determined on the battlefield, a general opposes those two armies in the few square inches of his mind, and observes how he will lead his army into battle. This is a martial art performed in the mind. It is a martial art to be mindful of chaotic times while ruling the country in peace. And it is also a martial art to observe the inner workings of a country, to know what causes chaos, and to rule well before chaos begins. While you are governing a country, it is yet again a martial art to keep your mind clearly on the farthest corners of the farthest province, and to appoint various officials to keep guard over them. Such officials, from the highest to the lowest, may have their own selfish agendas, and the suffering of those under them could indeed be the beginning of the country's ruin. Thus, it is essential that you observe the inner workings of the country and prevent its ruin at the hands of officials with various personal agendas. This is like the martial art of seeing into the intentions of your opponent in a sword match by observing his movements. You must observe the situation clearly and with great intensity. This is the great principle of the martial arts. Again, a lord may be accompanied by flatterers who, when facing their superior, will put on the appearance of men of the way, but when regarding their inferiors, will flash looks of anger. If one does not curry favor with such men, good deeds will be reported as evil, the guiltless will suffer, and criminals will be praised. Observing this principle is more important than seeing through your opponent's intentions by the movements of his sword. The province is the Lord's province, and the people are the Lord's people. Those close to the Lord serving as administrators are his vassals, just as are those who serve him from afar. What matters the degree of intimacy? They are like hands and feet for the sake of the ruler. Are the feet different from the hands because they are further away? If both are equal in concern, will one be more intimate and the other more remote? Nevertheless, a man close to the Lord may plunder those far away, and if the innocent are made to suffer, will they not resent even a lord who is without stain? Those close to the Lord are few, no more than 5 or 10, but those at a distance are many. Now the many may resent the Lord and sever their affections toward him, and the few close to the Lord may have had their own interests in mind from the beginning, with no thought of true service. Those few may govern in such a way as to make the people resent the Lord, and at such a time will fight to be the first to distance themselves from him. It is best to observe this principle well, so that those at a distance will not somehow be at a disadvantage beyond their Lord's blessings. If you observe this principle well, it will become your martial art. Having no conflicts in association with friends from beginning to end is also a matter of seeing into the principles of a relationship, and this, too, is a martial art of the mind. The mind that looks into the principles of associating with people in a particular setting is a martial art as well. If you do not observe these principles, you may overstay yourself at a certain gathering and incur shame for yourself for no real account, or by prattling on without observing the sensibilities of the people with whom you are associating. You may invite an argument or even bring yourself to ruin. All of this depends upon either seeing or not seeing into principles. Arranging objects in your living room is a matter of using what is right for each place. And this, too, is a matter of seeing into the principles of those places. This is not unlike the very heart of the martial arts. Truly, the arena may change, but the principle is the same, and thus you could even apply this to national affairs, and make no mistakes. It is missing the point to think that the martial art is solely in cutting a man down. It is not in cutting people down. It is in killing evil. It is the stratagem of killing the evil of one man and giving life to 10,000. What is written down in these 3 chapters should not leave this school, but this is not making a secret of the way. To keep this in secret is for the sake of making it known. Not making it known would be the same as not writing it down. You, my descendants, should think this over well. The great learning is the gate for the beginning scholar. For the most part, when arriving at a house, you first go in through the gate. The gate is a sign that you have approached the house. Passing through this gate, you enter the house and meet the master. Just so. Learning is the gate that approaches the way. Passing through this gate, you arrive at the way. But learning is the gate, not the house. Do not look at the gate and think, this is the house. The house is within, reached only after passing through the gate. Do not read written works and think, this is the way. Written works are like the gate to approach the way. Thus, there are people who remain ignorant of the way, regardless of how much they have learned and how many Chinese characters they know. Though they face the pages and read as skillfully as though they were annotating the ancients, they are ignorant of the truth, and so do not make the way their own. Nevertheless, It is quite difficult to approach the way without studying. Still, one cannot say that a man embodies the way simply because he has studied and speaks well. There are also people who are naturally in harmony with the way and who have never studied at all. In the Great Learning it says, "Extend your knowledge to all things." To extend means to do so exhaustively. Exhaustively extending your knowledge generally means to know men as they are in the world, and to exhaustively know the principles of all existing things. To extend your knowledge, then, is to have nothing said to be unknown. All things can also be read as exhausting all things and events. If you exhaustively know the principles of all things, there is nothing remaining unknown, and nothing that cannot be done. When you have left no stone unturned in knowledge, you have done the same with all things. But if you do not know the principles, nothing will come of your actions. If you do not know all things, you still harbor doubts, and when you doubt something, that thing will not leave your mind. If you come to the end of a matter with no principle clearly understood, there will be nothing at all in your mind. This is called exhausting knowledge and exhausting the things of this world. When there is nothing at all left in your mind, everything becomes easy to do. The study of all ways is done for the sake of making a clean sweep of your mind. Because in the beginning a man knows nothing at all. He has nothing at all in his mind. When you begin to study, there is something in your mind. You are obstructed by that thing, and it becomes difficult to do anything at all. If you can clear from your mind those things you have learned, they too will become nothing. And when you perform the techniques of the various ways, the techniques will come easily, regardless of what you have learned, and without being contrary to it. When you perform an action, you will be in harmony with what you have learned, without even being aware of it. You should understand that this is the way of the martial arts. The heart of extending knowledge is the discipline of exhaustively learning 100 methods with the sword and thoroughly mastering the postures, methods of using the eyes, and the other techniques. When you have run the length of various practices, and none of those practices remain in your mind, that very lack of mind itself is the heart of all things. When you have exhaustively learned the various practices and techniques, and made great efforts in disciplined training, there will be actions in your arms, legs, and body, but none in your mind. You will have distanced yourself from training, but will not be in opposition to it, and you will have freedom in whatever technique you perform. You yourself will be unaware of where your mind is, and neither demons nor heresies will be able to find it. Training is done for the purpose of reaching this state. With successful training, training falls away. This is the secret principle toward which all ways progress. By forgetting about training and casting off your mind, you will be all the more unaware of yourself. The place you come to in this way is the perfection of the way. At this level, you enter through training and arrive at its very absence. Chi and will. The mind that takes up its stance within and intently considers a matter is called the will. The will is internal, but when it is manifested externally, it is called Chi. The will can be said to be the master, and Chi the servant. Will is internal, and uses Chi. If Chi overruns its bounds, it stumbles. Chi is reined in by will, and should not be made to hurry. In terms of the martial arts, we call will the concentration of the mind from the waist down, and Chi the giving and receiving of strikes when a match is in progress. The mind should be thoroughly concentrated below the waist, and the Chi should not be driven too precipitously. It is essential to remain calm, so that Chi is reined in by will, and will is not dragged along by Chi. Deception is the foundation of the martial arts. Deception is strategy. By the false, the truth is obtained. Deception is such that, even when your opponent is aware of it, he cannot help but be taken in. When you use deception and your opponent is taken in, you defeat him by causing him to be taken in. When you see that your opponent has not been taken in, you use yet another deception. Thus, even an opponent not initially taken in can be taken in after all. In Buddhism, this is called an expedient means. The truth is hidden within, a ruse is placed without, and in the end one is drawn unto the path of truth. In this way, all deception becomes truth. In the Shinto religion, this is called mystery. By the mysterious, men's faith is aroused, and when there is faith, there will be divine favor. In the warrior clans, this is called military strategy. Though strategy is deception, it is through deception that victory is obtained without hurting others. This way, deception becomes truth in the end. This is called putting things in order by applying the contrary. In Zen, there is a saying, beat the grass and scare up the snake. Just as you beat the grass to scare up the snake that lies within, there is a technique of surprising your opponent to cause his mind to become agitated. Deception is doing something unexpected by your opponent and surprising him. This is the martial arts. Once surprised, your opponent's mind will be taken in and his skill undone. Raising your fan or hand in front of him will also take your opponent's mind. Tossing aside the sword you are carrying is also a martial art. If you have attained the skill of no sword, what will a sword be to you? Another man's sword is your sword. This is the function of grasping the opportunity. The heart of grasping the opportunity, Kaizen, is always in grasping the moving power from your opponent. The character Kai refers to the chi concentrated within one's mind. This Kai is chi, observing your opponent's chi and moving to meet the opponent before his chi can function, is grasping the opportunity. This also exists in Zen, as is clear from the phrase, the moving power of Zen. Kai is the unmanifested chi hidden within. As a controlling power, it can be likened to the hidden device in a door that allows it to be opened and shut, acting by an astute observation of this almost unseen and unmanifested chi hidden inside is known in the martial arts as grasping the opportunity. On the words ken, attacking, and tai, abiding. Attacking means assaulting intensely, striking the first blow with your sword with all your concentration as soon as you meet your opponent. This attitude is the same, whether it is within your opponent's mind or your own. Abiding means waiting for your opponent to make the first move, and not making an abrupt attack yourself. You should understand abiding to mean exercising extreme caution. Attacking and abiding. These two mean assaulting and waiting. The principles of attacking and abiding exist in both the body and the sword. Attack your opponent by closely approaching him with your body and yet holding back with your sword. In this way, you entice him to make the first move with your body and limbs and defeat him by the enticement. So doing, your body and limbs are attacking while your sword is abiding. Putting the body and limbs in attack is done to cause your opponent to make the first move. Attacking and abiding exist in both body and mind. You should hold the mind in a state of abiding, and the body in attack. This is because if the mind is in attack, it will run to excess until the effect is a negative one. Restrain your mind and carry it in abiding. Have your body attack and defeat your opponent by making him take the first step. If your mind takes the attitude of attack, you will feel that you must cut your opponent first, and you will suffer defeat. On the other hand, there is also an understanding of having the mind in attack and the body in abiding. The heart of this is in working your mind without negligence. By having your mind in attack and your sword in abiding, you cause your opponent to take the first step. In this case, you should understand the body to be nothing other than the hand holding your sword. Thus we can say that the mind is in attack and the body in abiding. Although these two definitions exist, they ultimately mean the same. Either way, you obtain the victory by having your opponent make the first move. Lessons on how to approach an opponent when he takes up attack. 2 stars. Peak and valley. Distant plated mountains. All these items are ways of observing or fixing the eyes. The details are transmitted orally. The rhythm of far and near, body position and sensation of the bead tree. These 2 items are concerned with the sword and body posture. Making a shield of your fists, placing the body sideways, keeping your shoulders level with your opponent's fists, keeping your rear legs open, keeping your stance the same as your opponent's. These 5 items are concerned with both the body and the sword. Each should be learned while you are engaged in matches. They are difficult to express in written words. Well then, the mentality for each of these 5 items is to fully concentrate your mind below the waist, to be completely attentive, and to have no negligence in your mind before engaging with your opponent. While engaged, your mind should be unwobbling. These things are essential. If you lack the concentration below the waist and suddenly have to fight, neither the techniques you have learned nor anything else will come to your aid. Lessons on how to approach an opponent when he takes an attitude of abiding. 2 stars. Peaks and valleys. Distant mountains. When your opponent has taken a strict attitude of abiding, these 3 targets for fixing the eyes should not be abandoned. Simply, these targets for fixing the eyes should be used for both attack and abiding. They are essential. You should bear clearly in mind that peaks is for striking attacks, and that distant mountains is for exchanging strikes and close-in fighting. Generally, you should always fix your eyes on the 2 stars. The 3 intents. The 3 intents are nothing other than 3 observations. They consist of a trial attack of striking, drawing, and waiting. When it is difficult to gauge what your opponent is going to do, you should be able to discern his intentions with these. They are used to sound out the mind of your opponent. For an opponent who has resolutely set himself into an attitude of abiding, use these 3 or similar provocations. Execute your deception. Make your opponent use his own technique and defeat him. Adhere to a change. Follow a change. The heart of this matter is that if your opponent has taken an attitude of abiding, and you provoke him with a number of changes, your opponent himself will then manifest change. Following that change, you will defeat him. Manipulating 2 eyes. You should execute various deceptions with an opponent who has taken an attitude of abiding. While watching what your opponent is doing, you should look when you do not seem to be doing so, and not look when you seem to be looking. Do not be negligent at any moment, and do not set your eyes on any one place, but keep them moving, steadily and quickly. In a certain Chinese poem, it is said, "With a pilfered glance, the dragonfly evades the shrike." A pilfered glance means a stealthy look. In order to avoid being caught, the dragonfly looks stealthily in the direction of the shrike and leaps into flight. You should constantly, without negligence, look stealthily at your opponent's actions. The mind that defeats the opponent by allowing him to strike. To cut a man with a single blow is easy. To avoid being cut by a man is difficult. Though a man intends to strike you and advances to do so, keep him at a certain interval. Above all, remain calm and allow him to advance, and then allow him to strike. Thus, even though your opponent has an intention to strike and goes through the motions of striking, if you maintain a certain interval, he will not make contact. The sword that makes no contact is a dead sword. You then go over his dead sword, strike, and defeat him. Your opponent's first strike has missed, but in return, you take him with the first strike of your sword. After you have struck your first blow, be sure to prevent him from lifting his hands again. After you strike, if you vacillate about what to do next, your opponent will surely strike at you with yet another blow. At this point, negligence will equal defeat. You will be struck by your opponent, and your first strike will be brought to nothing. This is because your mind stopped at the point you have placed your blow. Do not rest your mind at the place you have struck, wondering whether you have cut the man or not. You should strike him a second or third time, and yet a fourth or fifth time, not giving him a chance to even raise his face. The victory will be determined by the first blow of your sword. 3 rhythms. One rhythm is when you and your opponent strike at the same time. Another is when he raises his sword and you strike from beneath. And a third is when he lowers his sword and you go over it and strike. The rhythm of striking at the same time is considered to be undesirable, while the rhythm of striking separately is thought to be good. If the strikes are simultaneous, your opponent will be able to use his sword well. But if the strikes are not made at the same moment, he will use his sword poorly. You should strike so that it is difficult for your opponent to use his sword. Whether you attack from below or above, you should strike with no beat. Generally speaking, it is undesirable to maintain a rhythm. Broad rhythm, short rhythm, short rhythm, broad rhythm. If your opponent brandishes his sword and establishes a broad rhythm, you should brandish your sword with a short rhythm. If your opponent establishes a short rhythm, you should use a broad rhythm. This, too, is understood as using a rhythm to keep your opponent out of rhythm. If you maintain a rhythm, your opponent will be able to use his sword well. A skillful chanter of no drama, for example, will perform in such a way as to maintain no particular rhythm, and an unskilled drummer will be unable to play along with him. In the same way that chanting or drumming will be difficult if there is a skillful chanter but a poor drummer, or a skillful drummer but a poor chanter, the combinations of broad and short rhythm, or short and broad rhythm, will make it difficult for your opponent to strike. If an unskillful chanter falls into a broad rhythm, an accomplished drummer may try to beat lightly with a short rhythm, but will be unsuccessful. Again, if a skillful chanter takes up a light beat, a poor drummer will be unable to keep from falling behind. A skillful bird catcher will first let the bird see his pole, then shake the pole loosely from his end, and, with a smooth approach, capture the bird. The bird is taken in by the shaking rhythm of the pole. Though it flutters its wings again and again, it is unable to take flight, and so is caught. You should act so that you are out of rhythm with your opponent. If the rhythm is upset, he will not even be able to jump over a ditch, but will step right into it. You should give careful scrutiny to this kind of mentality, being aware of the entire song. For both dance and chanting, you will be unable to perform if you do not know the entire song. You should understand the entire song in the martial arts as well. You should especially see through your opponent and ascertain the action of his sword. Know this through to the bottom of his mind, and you will have the mind that has memorized the entire song well. If you know the demeanor and action of your opponent well, you will gain freedom in your own devices. Counter-striking, 2 or 3 inches between combatants, quickly stealing the body. Checking the Jodan interlace. Checking the space between right and left during a wheel sword maneuver. The 3-foot interval. These 6 items will not be learned unless transmitted orally and taught during matches with the master. They are not to be expressed by putting everything down with brush and paper. There may be occasions when you brandish your sword using various feints and deceptions, with techniques such as these, and your opponent, taking a firm attitude of abiding, will neither be startled nor be made to initiate a move. When this occurs, steal within 3 feet of your opponent and draw up close to his body. When he can bear this no longer, allow him to move to make his first strike, and then strike. If your opponent does not strike, it is likely that you will be unable to defeat him. If your opponent does strike at you, keep the no contact interval clearly in mind, and he will not be able to strike abruptly at you again. Practice this technique well. Move close to your opponent without timidity. Get him to make the first move and defeat him. This is the concept of initiating the initial move. The great distortion and the feint attack. This should be orally transmitted mindfulness to be maintained in both attacking and abiding. This should be orally transmitted. Avoiding the opponent's sword by keeping open a foot and a half. Engaging, attack, and abiding. You should understand the body in attack and the sword in abiding. All of these items will be difficult to master if they are not transmitted orally and learned during matches with the master. Listening to the sound of wind and water. The foundation of this way is always deception. Its wisdom of victory is entirely in attacking with various feints, creating variations, and causing the opponent to make the first move. Even before the fight, you must be resolved that your opponent will attack, and not be negligent. It is essential to maintain your concentration below the waist. If you do not think your opponent will attack, you will be set upon quickly and severely as soon as the fight begins, and all your daily training and techniques will be for naught. After the attack begins, it is essential to put your mind, body, and legs in attack, and your hands in an attitude of abiding. You must look and pay careful attention to existence. This is the lesson of grasping existence. Indeed, if you do not observe this aspect with calm, it is unlikely that your lessons in swordsmanship will be of much use. Listening to wind and water means tranquility above and intense activity below. The voice of the wind does not exist, but issues forth when it comes in contact with things. Thus, when it blows high above, it is tranquil, but when it blows below and touches trees, bamboo, and the myriad things, its voice is hurried and loud. Water, too, when falling from above, has no voice. But when it comes in contact with things and falls on what is below, there will be a clattering sound. Tranquility is above and intense activity is below. This is to say, the exterior is calm and peaceful, with nothing to invite a second look, while the interior is attentive and free of negligence. It is understandable to have the body and the limbs hurry. Attacking and abiding should be placed within and without. It is not right to harden into just one of these two. Remember that yin and yang go through their changes mutually. Movement is yang. Tranquility is yin. Yin and yang move, now inside, now out. When yang moves within, the outside is tranquil with yin. If yin is within, yang moves and is manifested outside. The martial arts are like this as well, moving without negligence, activating the chi within, and keeping the outside peaceful, with no cause for alarm. It is in accord with the principle of heaven that yang moves within, and that yin is peaceful without. Moreover, if attack moves rigorously on the outside, the mind within should remain calm and unaffected by the exterior. In this way, even though the exterior is in attack, it will not be in disorder. If both interior and exterior are in motion, there will be disorder. You should make attacking and abiding, motion and tranquility, and interior and exterior, all mutual. The water bird floats along the surface of the water and, though tranquil above, paddles along on webbed feet below. In the same way, if you are without negligence within, and make great efforts with this practice, mind and body will unify. Inside and outside will become one, and you will be without hindrance. Reaching this sphere, you will have obtained the very ultimate. Sickness. To think only of winning is sickness. To think only of using the martial arts is sickness. To think only of demonstrating the result of one's training is sickness, as is thinking only of making an attack or waiting for one. To think in a fixated way only of expelling such sickness is also sickness. Whatever remains absolutely in the mind should be considered sickness. As these various sicknesses are all present in the mind, you must put your mind in order and expel them. An understanding of the two levels for expelling sickness. The preliminary level. Use thought to arrive at no thought. Use attachment to be non-attached. The heart of this is that thinking of expelling sickness is in itself a thought. The thought of expelling sickness in the mind is using a thought. It is also called sickness when you are consumed by a thought. To think of expelling sickness is a thought. However, you may expel thought by the use of thought. When you can leave off thoughts, you will have become void of them. In this way, using thoughts is said to be no thought. If you can expel the sickness of any remaining thoughts with thought, afterward, both the thought that has been expelled and the thought with which it was expelled will disappear. This is the same as using a wedge to extract another wedge. If you drive a wedge into the place where another wedge is struck, the first wedge will loosen and come out. When the first wedge is extracted, the wedge used to loosen it will not remain either. If you wish to expel sickness, the thought that is used to expel sickness will not remain afterward, and this is called using thought to arrive at no thought. The thought of expelling sickness may be an attachment to that sickness, but with that attachment, sickness is expelled, and the attachment itself does not remain. This is called using an attachment to become non-attached. The profound level. In the profound level, expelling sickness is in the lack of mind that thinks only of doing so. The thought of expelling sickness is itself sickness. Sickness will be expelled by abandoning yourself to it and carrying on within its midst. The thought of expelling sickness will not have results because that thought is in the mind. Thus, the more the sickness remains, and the more you become fixated on that thought, the less benefit there will be. How should this be understood? The answer is this. The preliminary and the profound have been established in two levels for this use. When you train yourself in the preliminary frame of mind and have acquired sufficient discipline, the fixation is left behind without even the thought of leaving it. What is called sickness is fixation. In Buddhism, fixation is abhorred. The monk who has left fixation behind, however, can mingle with the dust of worldly affairs and not be stained. He is free in whatever he does and abides in no one place. Experts in all the ways can hardly be called masters if, beyond their various techniques, they have not yet severed themselves from fixation. Dust and dirt will become attached to a rough, unpolished gem. The polished gem, however, will be unblemished, even in the midst of the mire. By means of discipline, you polish the jewel of mind, allowing no blemish. You abandon yourself to sickness, and toss away the mind altogether. A monk asked an ancient worthy, "What is the way?" The worthy replied, "Your ordinary mind. That is the way." This anecdote contains a principle that runs through all disciplines. When an explanation of the way is requested, the answer is your ordinary mind. This is truly profound. Expelling all the sicknesses of the mind, engendering the ordinary mind, and yet abiding amidst sickness. This is the state of being without sickness. Apply this to the world of the arts. When practicing archery, if your mind is occupied by thoughts of shooting the bow, your aim will be disordered and wandering. When using the sword, if your mind is occupied with thoughts of plying the sword, its tip will not likely be regulated. When practicing calligraphy, if your mind is occupied by thoughts of writing, the brush will be unsettled. When playing the koto, if your mind is filled with thoughts of plucking the strings, the melody will be confused. When the man shooting the bow forgets about the mind that is shooting the bow, and releases the string with the ordinary mind he has, when doing nothing, the bow will be tranquil. When plying a sword, riding a horse, writing something, or playing the koto, take up the ordinary mind that does none of these, or anything at all. Then no matter what you do, you will do it with ease. No matter which discipline you follow, if you have in your breast one absolute course, it will not be the real way. The man who has nothing at all in his breast is a real man of the way. Having nothing in his breast, when he does something, it is done with ease, no matter what arises. Because a mirror is always clear and has no form within it at all, the form of whatever stands before it will be clearly reflected. The breast of a man of the way is like a mirror. It does nothing and is perfectly clear. Thus, he has no mind, and in all things lacks nothing. This is the ordinary mind. A man who accomplishes everything with this ordinary mind is said to be a master. In doing any number of things, you hold the mind that does it correctly, and do not scatter that mind distractedly. But in doing that one thing with a single purpose, you will do it inconsistently. Just when you think you've done something well once, you do it again, but poorly. Or, if you do something well twice, and do it poorly the third time, you may congratulate yourself for doing it well 2 out of 3 times. But then, once again, you do it poorly, and nothing is settled. This is because you do it with a mind occupied with doing something well. When you have continuously made great efforts and have accumulated discipline without really noticing, you will have left aside the thought of doing things well and will have attained the realm of no mind/no thought. And this, without really thinking about it, and no matter what you do, your actions will be like the machinations of a wooden puppet. At such a time, you will not be self-conscious, and your mind will not be occupied with what you are doing. Thus, in 10 out of 10 times, your body, hands, and feet will make no mistakes. But if your mind slips in, even slightly, you will miss your aim. When you have no mind, you will hit the mark every time. No mind, however, is not a state of having no mind at all. It is simply your ordinary mind. Like a man made of wood, with flowers and birds. There are the words of layman Pang. They refer to being like a man made of wood, facing flowers and birds. Though flowers and birds are right before its eyes, its heart is not moved. This is reasonable, as a man made of wood has no heart. So how can you, a man having a heart, be like one made of wood? The man of wood is a metaphor. As a human being with a heart, you should not be equivalent to wood. As a human being, you should not be like wood or bamboo at all. This is not a matter of looking at flowers and newly engendering a mind that is engaged in this activity. What is said here is that one looks with the ordinary mind, with no mind. Shooting a bow is not a matter of doing so while newly preparing the mind for such an activity. What is said here is that you should shoot with the ordinary mind. The ordinary mind is said to be no mind. If you change the ordinary mind and engender it anew, insofar as the form will be modified, both interior and exterior will move. If you do everything with a wobbling mind, nothing will be as it should. If a man speaks in an unwobbling manner, though it be a single word, he will be praised. The unmoving mind of all the Buddhas is truly felt to be admirable. The profound level and this section are helpful in possessing a mind that can expel the sickness of the martial arts. The priest Chung Feng said, "Maintain the mind that releases the mind." This saying has 2 levels of meaning. The practice of the first is as follows. If you release the mind, do not allow it to become fixated when it reaches its destination, but unfailingly make it return. If you strike once with your sword, do not let your mind stop at that strike, but bring your mind back securely to yourself. The deeper meaning is, in releasing the mind, you let it go where it wishes. Releasing the mind means letting it go and not letting it stop anywhere. Maintain the mind that releases the mind means exactly that. For if the mind is released and always brought back, as if in a net, it will not be free. The mind that releases the mind is one that is let go and does not stop. If you maintain such a released mind, your movements will be free. Even dogs and cats are better raised unleashed. A leashed dog or a leashed cat cannot be raised well. Those who read the Confucian scriptures become fixated on the word reverence. When they place this concept above all the others and live their whole lives by it alone, they make their minds resemble a leashed cat. We also have the word reverence in Buddhism. and the sutras speak of the undisturbed, concentrated mind. These two would seem to be very close in meaning. You concentrate your mind on one thing and allow no confusion from any direction. Of course, there is also the chanted phrase, speaking with reverence is itself the Buddha and all his disciples. And when facing a Buddhist image, one is said to concentrate on a respectful salutation. None of these differ with the intent of the word reverence. Nevertheless, all of these are expedients for pacifying the disturbed mind, and the mind that is well pacified will not need an expedient. When you intone the name of Lord Fudo, you make your posture correct, press your palms together, and contemplate his unmoving form in your consciousness. At this time, the three conditions of karma, body, mouth, and consciousness, are made one and equal, and concentration is undisturbed. This is called the universalization of the three mysteries. In intent, therefore, there are the same as the word reverence, and reverence is in harmony with the virtue of the original mind. The condition of the mind, however, lasts only while you are performing the ritual. If you release your palms and stop intoning the Buddha's name, the Buddhist image in your mind disappears, and you return once again to your confused mental state. This is not a totally pacified mind. The man who has been able to pacify his mind once and for all from beginning to end may not have cleansed the three conditions of body, mouth, and consciousness, but he can mingle with the dust of the world and remain unstained. Though he moves through the world all day long, he himself is unmovable. This is like the moon that seems to follow the innumerable waves, yet truly moves not at all. This is the sphere of one who has reached the ultimate of the Buddhist law. I write this down as the instructions I received from a Buddhist priest.